Alright VC, it's Mike here again. This is part 3 of the records I bought at the big box media store here in town. More value vinyl finds a lot of early jazz. I don't buy just jazz, but the good stuff seemed to mostly be the jazz and the value vinyl here. A lot of stuff is mostly all for $10 here. And so I bought a lot of it. This is Gato Barbieri. El Gato on the Flying Dutchman label with just a god awful album cover here. Nice brown teeth. I mean, just an awful album cover, but yeah, excellent. Little nicer looking there. Argentinian sax player here, recorded for Impulse, and then of course recorded for when Bob Thiel left Impulse, started his own label, Flying Dutchman, recorded with him. Good players in here: Lonnie Liston Smith, Oliver Nelson, Stanley Clark, Ron Carter, Hairto, Pretty Purdy. Good album. Oscar Peterson Trio on Verve. Can never have too much Oscar Peterson here on piano. Here's some more rock. Didn't find a whole lot of rock in this classic stuff that I had to have, but this one, I'd actually seen it and passed it up a couple times, but when I took a closer look, the catalog number started with a K, which kind of intrigued me, like what was the deal with that. I knew that wasn't the US Atlantic pressing, and so when I looked it up, it's a UK pressing, like a second press, and the cover's a little beat. Yeah, a little water damage on the bottom, got stuck to another one. The cover peeled off some, but took it home and cleaned it up, and it sounds amazing. Never heard the album sound so good. Just thin vinyl, one of those thin vinyl pressings. No 180 gram here, but it just sounds fantastic. Charles Lloyd. Been buying a lot of Charles Lloyd because I've been finding it cheap, and it's worth having. Excellent sax player. Nirvana from Columbia. And Jimmy Smith. If you like Jimmy Smith, I wouldn't recommend picking this up. This is kind of a curiosity. This is some of his early recordings here, before he'd really developed his style that made him such a big star on the early Blue Note recordings. This one, what label is this on? Pickwick, maybe? Yeah, it's on Pickwick. You know, not that good, but I've got so much Jimmy Smith. Here's another one. I couldn't pass that up. This is Peter and the Wolf, arranged and conducted by Oliver Nelson. On Verve, Don Pullen, piano player on Atlantic, promo here obviously. Tomorrow's Promises. Interesting stuff. This is kind of a cool album. This is a twofer here by Jackie McLean, called Echoes of an Era. Or maybe that's a series, Echoes of an Era. They call it Tune Up, but it's actually a reissue of two albums that had come out. One originally on Ad Lib, and then reissued on Jubilee, and then the other one originally issued on Jubilee. This is on the Roulette label. Good early stuff from him. Sound quality is pretty good. I actually heard that Roulette had bought out Jubilee and used a lot of their original stampers for these reissues, so sound quality should be as good as the original or close. So that was kind of nice. A couple of early albums from him for $2.50. Dave Pell, sax player, Dave Pell's Jazz Octet. A Pell of a Time. I think this one was a little more out there than a lot of his other recordings. This one on RCA Victor. Special issue. I don't know what that means. Herbie Mann, some more Herbie Mann. You know, as younger, I used to always see Herbie Mann album covers, and you know, from probably the late 60s or early 70s, bare-chested Herbie Mann holding his flute with his hairy chest, and just thought gross. You know, and the whole idea of like a jazz flute just turned me off. But actually, this stuff's pretty good. This is recorded in live at Montreux at the New York 72 New York and Montreux Jazz Festivals. He's got Sonny Sharrock in the band, although you don't really get to hear Sonny go wailing on his guitar much, unfortunately. That seemed to be the case on most of his albums with Herbie Mann. He never really got to go nuts. Jimmy Weisner Trio, Apperception, on the Chancellor label. Don't really know a whole lot about that label, kind of a smaller label. Neat label there. Can pass it up, some early jazz. Al Caiola, like I've mentioned before, he's a guitar player. Kind of started out in the swing era, went off to World War II, and then did a lot of session work. He was under contract with United Artists and recorded a bunch of albums with them. Stan Getz on Verve. This one orchestrated and arranged by Michel Legrand. I don't know a whole lot about him. Yeah, Communication 72. I gave it a listen. I enjoyed it. It was kind of weird. Kenny Barron. He'd actually played on, I showed a Sonny Fortune album earlier, and Sonny Fortune plays on this album. This is on, let's see, the Wolf label. Never heard of that one before. Let's see, you got Billy Hart on percussion, Kenny Barron on keyboards, Gary King on bass. Pretty good stuff. I listened to it once, and I'll listen to it again. Ron Carter Etudes on the Electro Musician label with Bill Evans, Art Farmer, and Tony Williams. I really like this Electro Musician label. They had some pretty quality stuff in the 80s on that label. Another one from Gabor Szabo, live. It says with Charles Lloyd, but I think he only plays on one track on this. This is Spellbinder live. This is on the Blue Thumb label, which I think was out of San Francisco. But it's interesting. It's a subsidiary of Famous Music Corps, a Gulf and Western company. I think, wasn't that an oil company? I could be wrong. But I think the Jazz Crusaders recorded for Blue Thumb as well. It's pretty good stuff. Kind of a little funkier than his earlier recordings on Impulse. And then it showed some other Flying Dutchmen. This is Tom Scott Quartet. A very young Tom Scott here. It's Paint Your Wagon, a jazz rock excursion. I haven't really listened to this one yet, but it's got that nice Impulse style gatefold cover with laminated outside exterior. I don't know what's up with that photo there. I guess he's supposed to be asleep. And then, not really rock, but new wave, new romantic type stuff here, Duran Duran Arena. I picked this up because it's a UK press. And it's good stuff, fun. UK pressing there, direct metal mastered. Some people like those, some people hate them, they say they're too harsh. This one on the Jubilee label, I mentioned Jackie McLean reissues that were originally on the Jubilee label. So here's the Jubilee logo there. This is Lou McGarity Quintet, music from Some Like It Hot. They tend to have some kind of funky staged photographed covers here for this label, Jubilee. There's the, I guess that's a promo label there. Yeah, not for sale. Interesting stuff. Stan Getz Focus, composed and arranged by Eddie Sauter. I did not pay $30 for this. I paid $2.50 on Verve. And then Stan Kenton here, after he left Capitol, I guess had a falling out with them or something, he started his own label called Creative World, and reshoot a lot of his early stuff. These are recordings from, I think, the 1940s, City of Glass, and This Modern World. Interesting stuff, kind of a mixture of jazz and classical. Let's see, this is a Pacific Jazz compilation here. 24 great jazz groups on mic. Here's a limited edition value 2-record set for $4.98, but I paid $2.50 for it. Some great names on here. I'm not going to read them all, but among the many different tracks, a lot of talent. And that's on that early Pacific Jazz looking label there. Definitely was excited to find that. On MRC, the division of Mercury, the name MRC actually comes from the initials for Mercury Records Corp. MRC. There's a compilation here, the Jazz Greats Reads Part 1. So it's got some of the early sax players, Lester Young, James Moody, Paul Quinichette, Coleman Hawkins. Couldn't pass that one up. And some kind of late in the game, Cal Jader, the Vibes player, recorded a lot of stuff early on with Fantasy. This one's on Galaxy, I believe. This is called Breathe Easy. It's actually really good. I listened to it the other day. Hank Jones on piano, Shelly Manne on drums. Yeah, it's got a little Galaxy logo there. And then some more CTI. This is kind of the budget repress of George Benson's White Rabbit. I'm going to pick up one of the first pressings that I find in decent shape for a decent price, but until then, this will do. Very clean repress, plays very well. Definitely not as nice looking as the original pressings. On Brunswick Records, this is Tony Scott in hi-fi. He's a clarinet player, interested in a lot of world music. This is kind of a more straight-ahead jazz date early on here. There's that Brunswick label. Some really nice music. A lot of these I didn't know what they were at first. I kind of made a note, took a picture, went home, looked them up on Discogs, played them on YouTube, saw if I liked them, and kind of came back with a list and searched them out again. Another Al Caiola, Midnight in Moscow, United Artists. And this one on the, what's that label, Pasha or something? Pausa. They reissued a lot of stuff that was originally released on MPS, label out of Germany. I think this one actually was released at one point on Prestige. It's Alto Summit with Lee Konitz, Bill Woods, Leo Wright, Pony Poindexter. I was kind of skeptical, never heard this label before, but it's really nice pressing. Sounds really well. This is, believe it or not, an Impulse record. Late in the game for Impulse. John Handy was an excellent saxophone player, but made the decision at some point that he wanted to make some money. Didn't want to just be an out there guy, wanted to actually make some money, and kind of sold out. And the album cover pretty much says it all. This was actually, I guess I still got the shrink wrap. It was on shrink wrap and sealed. Never been open, so I cracked it open and played it, and yeah, that picture about explains it. You can see it's on ABC Impulse. Impulse has really kind of gone downhill by this point. I think Esmond Edwards, who'd been with Argo and Cadet, had taken over the helm. And one on Bethlehem. I don't see this label much out in the wild. I always pick them up when I see them. This is the Pat Moran Quartet. While at Birdland. Kind of hard to read there. I don't know much about her and her band, but like I said, it's on Bethlehem. I don't see that too often, so I'll gladly pick it up for $2.50. Sessions Live. This was a series put out. Let's see what the label was. The label is Calliope. And what these were, I think, radio recordings. I don't know, some kind of radio or TV recordings. They weren't issued anywhere else. I don't think they've been reissued on CD because there's some dispute about who owns the rights. So these are always worth picking up, I'd say. This one is Andre Previn. You probably recognize his name from all the thrift stores. You see a lot of Andre Previn records. He was a piano player, but later on did a lot of like conducting of orchestra type stuff. But he was based out in LA, Hollywood area, and cut some early jazz dates. This with Shelly Manne on drums, Red Mitchell on bass. Good stuff here. There's a whole lot of these sessions records. You can see some of the tracks are the Red Mitchell Quartet and some are Andre Previn with Shelly Manne or Red Mitchell. And here's one I picked up. I think I paid $2 for this one. Not really my kind of thing. Some sort of swampy rockabilly, early swamp rock. This is Johnny Allen, South to Louisiana and Other Hits. There's a compilation record here. Gin is the name of the label, that's right. I've seen this listed on eBay in much better condition for, I don't know, $100, $150. I think just because they didn't press too many of these. This one's in really rough shape. I cleaned it up really well, but it's pretty scuffed up and plays rough, but it was interesting just to hear. Excuse me. Alright, this is some early blues here. Well, not early, but blues goes back quite a way. This is Jimmy Reed at Carnegie Hall. And I think one record was at Carnegie Hall and one was actually a studio date on VJ. Known for a lot of jazz recordings as well. Got a rainbow VJ label here. In pretty good shape, a little scuffed up, but actually I got another record in here. Yeah, I found one that they had in the free bin, not dollar bin, free bin outside the store. It had some James Brown, something else, and then one of these Jimmy Reed. The Jimmy Reed was the only one that was actually really playable. And so I grabbed it for free, cleaned it up, and threw it in here with this one. So I have 3 records of Jimmy Reed now. Some early blues electric guitar work. Supposedly he was an influence on the Rolling Stones early on. Here's another one on the Jazz Tone Society. This is New Sounds and Swing. It's Joe Newman and Billy Byers. Got the rhythm duo of Milt Hinton and O.C. Johnson. Like they say, it's New Sounds and Swing. It's kind of swing jazz. Yeah, not a lot else to say about that. Good stuff. Alright, so then they had a sale at the store. Can't remember what the occasion was. Maybe it was Valentine's Day. I don't know why, but it was buy one get one on used vinyl, all used vinyl. So if you buy one, you get one free for one of same or less of value for free. So I went and picked up a few that I had kind of put off buying, but at this price I couldn't pass them up. This is Lorendo Almeida. He was a guitar player, Spanish classical type guitar player early on in Stan Kenton's orchestra. This is on the Coral label. This has to be one of his first solo recordings. Yeah, there's the label there, Coral. Nice stuff, a little beat up, but yeah, this thing's got to be at least 50, maybe 60 years old. So I couldn't pass that up. Yeah. Some more Stan Kenton on his Creative World label. These are reissues of earlier Capitol recordings, Adventures in Jazz. And Rendezvous with Kenton. I think a lot of these were originally issued on 10-inch records by Capitol originally. And some Chet Atkins on RCA. Finger style guitar. And Chet Atkins in Hollywood. This is the mono pressing. At one point I had the stereo pressing. It had a picture of a attractive blonde on the cover standing on a street corner. I think that was the later stereo issue. Good stuff. And then some living stereo. It was cheap enough, so picked it up. I'd always kind of wanted to listen to some of these, so I found some of the jazzier stuff and picked them up. Pops and Prado. And The Blues and the Beat, Henry Mancini. And this one's pretty cool. Music from the M Squad TV show. Of course, it's on the special miracle surface to reduce static electricity. Love that tough guy there. From the NBC TV series starring Lee Marvin. Alright, and then some a reissue here on Epic. Red Norvo and his All-Stars. He was a, I guess like a vibe player, vibraphone, xylophone, marimba, what have you. He's also a band leader early on. Had some big names in his band. Benny Goodman, Jimmy Dorsey, Artie Shaw, Gene Krupa, Teddy Wilson. Yeah. I think this is from late 50s. The recordings are from the late 30s, I believe. And then on the Arista Freedom label, Stefan Grappelli, violin player with Roland Hanna on keyboards, Mel Lewis and George Mraz, Parisian Thoroughfare. A lot of these are reissues of recordings originally on Black Lion or the Freedom label, which I think was out of France. Could be wrong. I always pick those up when I see them. They're usually pretty cheap. Sometimes they're kind of out there jazz. I think this one's maybe a little more traditional, but I wouldn't pass it up. Tony Mottola, guitar player on under contract with Command, Enoch Lights label. This is Roman guitar. Tony Mottola and orchestra. They have some really cool covers on these Command records. Really nice graphic style. Not really cheesy, but definitely easy listening. Nothing that's going to challenge your intellect here listening to these, but fun stuff. This is Bob Scobie's Frisco Band. Kind of some guys playing out in the LA Hollywood area, playing New Orleans style jazz. This This is on the Good Time Jazz label, which is a division of Contemporary Records, West Coast Jazz label, and this is actually a, let's see, a fantasy reissue. Yeah, there we go. Distributed by Fantasy. Like, they reissued a lot of stuff by Contemporary and Prestige on the original Jazz Classic series. This is another Jimmy Smith on Verve, Monster. Arranged and conducted by Oliver Nelson. It's got Goldfinger, Parts 1 and 2, theme from the Munsters, theme from Bewitched. Kind of cheesy, but it's Jimmy Smith, you know. Another Argo, early jazz label. Ralph Sharon and Friend. I don't really know anything about Ralph Sharon. This is 2:38 a.m. I guess it's called that because that's about when they recorded the album. They apparently played Club Date and then went to the studio afterwards, started recording. There was only one, according to the story on the back, there was one light in the studio there. You can kind of tell from the photograph. But the Friend, they reference to, I don't know if I can point out here, but it's apparently Candido on percussion. And then some Kudu, CTI sublabel. This is Grover Washington, A Secret Place. Yeah, like the CTI, the Kudu stuff, if I see it cheap and in really good shape, I'll pick it up. Another one on Pacific Jazz. This is Les McCann Limited. Recorded live in New York City. He was a piano player and singer. I think this was actually released quite a bit after he recorded it. I can't remember. The In Crowd, some more Ramsey Lewis on Argo. You see this record around a lot. This one's a little beat up, but you know, I think I paid $1 or $2, you know, with the discount, with the sale, so I couldn't pass it up. Great record, funky jazz. This one's got his early trio here. L.D. Young and Red Holt. I think those two had a band of their own, the Holt Young or Young Holt Express or something. They played more like R&B funky stuff after they left Ramsey Lewis. Ahmad Jamal, another Argo. This one is Ahmad Jamal at the Pershing Volume 2. Piano player Ahmad Jamal. Suppose he was an influence on Miles Davis. Because, not because of what he played, but what he didn't. The space between the notes, things like that. Modern Jazz Quartet on Atlantic. This is early pressing, not first pressing, but couldn't pass up Modern Jazz Quartet for $2-3. Paul Desmond, you know, known from Dave Brubeck's band and Jerry Mulligan. A couple of great sax players, two of mine. This one's on RCA Victor. A classic to be collaboration by two of the greatest soloists of modern jazz. Haven't actually had a chance to listen to that one yet. And coming up on the end here, didn't know anything about this one, but the cover looked intriguing. It's on Musidisc Masterpiece Series, Batucada Fantástica. Some kind of Brazilian percussion-based music. Give it a listen. Kind of interesting stuff. Apparently this label reissued stuff from different countries. I don't know. I think I paid $2 for that. And this one, the cover is just beat to hell. Moldy, dirty. Don't know if I can really do much to clean it up. This is a Riverside record here, first pressing. New Orleans Contrast, Sharky Bonanno, and Paul Barberin. I bought it because it was an early Riverside pressing, maybe first pressing. I love that early Riverside label with kind of the tape reels there. I don't have much New Orleans style jazz, so I figured I'd pick it up. The record cleaned up really well, actually. It's a little scuffed up, but plays really well. The cover's just gross. And then finally, didn't pick this one up the sale. I should have. I forgot about it. I think it was like marked $6 or something. Kind of seen it and hadn't thought much about it and read up, and it's supposed to be a pretty good record. This is The Sound of Paul Horn, the Paul Horn Quintet featuring Emil Richards. I think he played vibraphone. Miles Davis likes him. He plays horn the way it should be played, he says. This is actually, it's kind of got that floppy cover there. I thought maybe it was just some cheap knockoff or something, but I checked it out. It's a Australian pressing on CBS Coronet. Cleaned up really nice, sounds really good. Nice classic jazz there. So that's it so far from the, or pretty much it from the big box store. There's some Frank Lloyd right there, that's a book. Yeah, the last time I was there after this big sale, I asked them, so now that you got all this stuff cleared out, do you have more stuff to bring out? And he said actually they only had about 5 records in the back. That pretty much wiped out their stock there, so I've kind of cooled off in that place. I've been going there every 2 or 3 days, but I think now I'm going to lay off for a while and save my money up for a record show coming up and a Friends of the Library sale. I don't feel the need to go in there every 2 or 3 days obsessively and look for the good stuff. So that's it from that store for a while. I'll be showing you some of my more recent thrift store and record store finds from now on. Alright, thanks for watching.